fruit caramels and stuff. Just share it. At the end of the day, guys, everything's going together in a big display, so just divide up the team of 3 that you made 2. I'm just gonna cut a couple from yours just to demo with it. So you had extra. So you're gonna start melting your chocolate. You're gonna do your fruit caramels first. We're gonna be dipping those. What I did was put a chocolate transfer sheet in the refrigerator. If you wanted to just keep them shiny, we also I have to unlock it's not in here, that's the showpiece. I have to unlock the chocolate crust core. They make just shiny acetate sheets. So if you don't want that design, but you want it to have a nice shiny bottom, you could use those shiny sheets, okay? So that's an option also. So you're gonna pick out something for your fruit caramels. The butter crunch is pretty straightforward. We're just gonna be spreading chocolate either on one side or 2. And also on that recipe, if you wanted to toast extra almonds and sprinkle them on top so they stick, you could do that as well. You could just spread it with chocolate. And then the almonds, I'm gonna show you how to finish those when my chocolate's tempered. So as this melts, let me start to cut. So the cool thing about this caramel is we talked about how the temperature had to be a little bit higher, right? They're all different consistencies, which I find funny. That's the thermometer, inconsistencies in temperature. So these should be firm enough that you can flip them and cut them, but not so soft that they just turn to mush, right? And before we cut them, we have to do can you guys see what this one? We have to do a chocolate base on them. Because if we were to just flip this is a little firmer than this, but if we were to just flip this onto our cutting board, it's gonna stick, right? So before I can cut this, I have to spread it with tempered chocolate to let it set. It's also called a foot. That foot will help us to cut it, but it'll also help us when we go to dip, so it doesn't stick to our fork, our dipping fork, okay? So we need to coat that with chocolate first, but you're gonna have that set up. As far as what size to cut it, I'm gonna leave that up to you, but I would suggest you take a little corner off the edge or something and taste it. It's pretty sweet. So I would keep them small. Problem is if you go too small, they're kind of a pain to dip. If you go any smaller than the size of the fork, okay, I'd say any smaller than 1 inch square, they're a little bit hard to pick up, okay? So 1 inch is the smallest I would go in cutting those. All right, let me check this. Again, I'm going to allow you guys to decide which technique you like best. At the end of this weekend, you all should have tempered chocolate once, okay? Even though you're working in teams, the goal is for you guys to take turns because you'll have to do this independently for your practical. So make sure not, one person is always doing it. Make sure you're comfortable on your own tempering. And today we could do this twice. So you're doing 2 pounds. That should be enough to really enrobe your chocolates, and then I would temper another one to coat the butter crunch and the almonds. If we were doing this in a production kitchen, we temper a big batch, we do everything in one shot. But the goal is not to produce and bang it out, is for you guys to practice, okay? So you'll do it in 2 rounds. So let's see where I'm at. Remember, as you're working with this, you guys are paying attention to the consistency of the chocolate, so you can kind of have a feeling for what temperature you're at just by looking at how liquidy it is or how thick it is.
Chef, I have a question.
Sure.
In case on the last step, if your temperature, let's say, is over 89, you have to redo it.
90.
Oh, 90.
90 is that mark. If you go to 91, then you're going too high.
So when we redo it, what's the process for the temperature? Like, have
Start over, bring it back up,
150.
bring it back down. Depends. If you do a dip test and it doesn't work, if you're at 91, sometimes I've made it 92. Sorry, I'm at the right temp, right? So I took it off the temperature. I've lowered it down again and checked it, and sometimes it works, but usually if that doesn't work, then you just start all over again. All right, so I have measured out, we're doing 2 pounds, okay? If you start with 2 pounds of melted chocolate and you add more chocolate to it, you're gonna have more than that, right? So I started with 1 pound, 8 ounces of chocolate. Just as a gauge, this is not exact because Depends on what temperature you get to on here. I allotted for 25%, so 8 ounces of crushed chocolate add to it. Okay, so that's 8. So I'm going to take my thermometer out. And I'm going to add half of my pieces of chocolate first. And I'm going to stir. So this is cooling it down and adding those crystals that I need, right? Remember, don't be afraid to stir. So I can tell from the consistency of this, my chocolate's all melted. You guys, was the same brand of chocolate we worked with last week. When we got down to close to 82, it was much thicker, right? So I can tell that I'm not there yet. But check it and see, and I'm gonna add some more chocolate to it. I went down 10 degrees with half of it. I'm gonna add the rest of it. I'm still at 98. And stir. So you guys can see what I mean, right? If you were to add those chunks too late in the game, you'd never be able to get those out. The only way to get them out would be to rewarm it. And if you manage to rewarm it without going over 90 to get all those lumps out, then you're fine. But if they're big pieces like those pastels, it's almost impossible. It's really hard to do. So the other method that we don't have blocks of chocolate, so I can't really teach it, but is the block method, where you're taking a big seed, a giant tempered piece of chocolate, and you're adding it into your melted chocolate, and you're stirring it around and cooling it the same way. So in theory, it's doing the same thing. It's adding those crystals that you need, those seeds, and cooling it down. And the cool thing about that is, once you get to the temperature that you need, you can just fish it out, put it on a piece of parchment. You don't have to worry about making sure that you get all those pieces out. Again, I'm not going to check the temperature until I feel like my chocolate's completely smooth. I'm almost there. This part, the rewarming, remember last week we talked about why do we rewarm, the working temperature? What's the purpose of that? For shine, and what else?
Because you give it the body, the structure.
Fluidity, good, fluidity. So if you're coating something, so this is where it's pretty important, because if your chocolate's super duper thick and you try to make a nice thin coating on your caramels, it doesn't work. It's very thick and gloppy. So last week I said, oh, it's fine, you could use it when we were doing some of our lollipops and stuff, but all right, so I'm pretty smooth, a couple air bubbles, but I'm good. Check again. Just this point, I'm going to do a little dip test. It's a little bit warmer in here than last week. Doesn't feel like the air is blowing quite as much. So I'm going to check it. I'm at 85. Okay. So at this point, I can just keep stirring it. And listen, you can't do more, you can't do too many dip tests. So at this point, if you hit 85, do a dip test and see if it sets. If it sets up on you, you're ready to go. And you just need to 1, 2, 3 it over the heat to liquefy it. It's when you get too warm, then I would do another dip test to make sure that you haven't, thrown it out of temper. And we talked about brands of chocolate, right? And all the chocolates have different ranges. So not to confuse you, but this brand we're using of semi-sweet, the ranges the company tells you is to hit is closer to 82, 81 to 83 is the range, so I picked 82 to make it easy for you guys to remember. Felklin, the other brand of chocolate, the white and the dark that we use, their temperatures, their tempering recommendations are a little bit higher. So that's why for the test, don't stress. If you're in like a 3-degree window, or if you give me a range, I'll accept it.
Unless we know like what chocolate we're using.
Unless you want to be really specific. Yeah, yeah. For the Falcon brand, we do this. Yeah, this is what I thought of. So it's setting at 85. Why? It is. It works. So it's a range. So it's already setting. Pass that around. And to be honest with you, I like the consistency of 85 than 82. Because once you get down, remember some of you said last week, you get down too low, what happens? It gets too thick, and then it's kind of a pain to rewarm it. So 85 sets. So I'm going to, and actually 85 makes it easier because 85 is also the Falcon. I'm going to make the executive decision and change that to 85. If you put 82 to 85 on a test, I'm fine with it. Better to go to 85 instead of having to rewarm it from 82 to 88. So 1, 2, 3, off and on the heat. Don't kill it at this point. If you're not sure at this point, you go too high, check it again. All right.
That's usually the temperature used for semi-sweet.
This is what?
For semi-sweet?
This is, we're just doing semi-sweet now, yeah. You have to go lower
So
with
you
milk and dark.
didn't check the temperature to see if it was at.
You're late.
So you didn't check temperature to see if it was at 88, 90, because you could just tell by looking at it.
Yeah, I could just tell by looking at it.
You could just see
The
it
consistency is good, and I can work with it. Yeah.
Did you rewarm
I'm gonna
it?
say I did. I went through. I'm gonna say it's at 87. It's a little bit low, but at this point, I'm just doing my coating, so I can get away with using it. So I'm just gonna pick one up. I'm gonna be nice and take the softer one for you all. All right. Keep it on the foil for now because that'll help you. Thin sheet of chocolate on the bottom. I know it's the top, but it will be the bottom. Not too thick because then you're going to coat it again. Oh, it's there. Yeah. Yeah, I'll use my big one. All right. Spread it out. So for the butter crunch, you're basically doing the same thing. You're gonna pour some chocolate on it, spread it out like this. If you want to sprinkle almonds on it, toast them, make sure they're cooled. Make sure you sprinkle them on while it's still set so they stick. Don't put too many on because people like to sprinkle the whole thing and then they all fall off, okay? So don't do that. So I'm gonna let it set up on me, okay? And then I'm gonna flip it. I'll show you what that looks like. The other thing you're gonna do with your tempered chocolate, you're gonna keep doing all these steps, okay? I'm just kind of jumping around so I can talk about the next thing. So I'm gonna let that set up and then I'll cut some. The other thing you're gonna do is coat the butter crunch like I talked about. The other thing you're gonna do is coat the almonds. So you're gonna find your almonds, put them in a bowl, and you're gonna go as far as you can with that chocolate that you tempered first. If you need to do more, you do more, which you most likely will. The reason why we do the fruit caramels first is you need a deeper amount of chocolate to enrobe in, right? You don't want to do that last.
And when we do this, we can use the marble method if we're more comfortable with that.
Yeah, but I want you to do the seeding first.
Okay.
Yeah, we can at any point now, but I want you to do the seeding first so you've seen it, and then you can determine for yourself if that works. Because we have the second half of class, we have tomorrow, second half of class we're doing ganaches. And then tomorrow we're going to be coating all those and we'll be tempering chocolate like 2 or at least 3 more times.
There's only 2 methods to temper.
There's the block, which I just talked about that we're not going to do. There's the ice method that sometimes I show. If everybody nails the first 2 methods, I show the ice. Because ice is a little bit cheating.
Catherine showed us the ice method.
Yeah, you can, if you don't get the other ones down, I don't like to show the ice because I feel like it's cheating. And if you are not stirring enough to get the other 2 methods down first, it won't work because the ice cools it down, but if you don't agitate enough, you don't get crystals. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, I hit the temperature. well, because you iced it down. But if you're not stirring it enough, then you don't hit it. So once this is set, you're gonna flip it over. You're going to, hopefully, the other ones will pull back better, I promise. Pull back your caramel, pull back your foil. If you have problems with your caramel, let me see it. I feel like everybody's like touched everybody's, but, and we'll get as many out of this as we can. Excuse me. Thank you. All right. So what did we say? An inch?
Yeah, no.
No, bigger than, no, less than an inch. End. So this is all sugar. Obviously. Sometimes I have been able to throw it into the freezer. Problem is you have to be really careful when you're tempering and something's ice cold because it's going to set up really quickly. So it's not ideal. I'll do a couple to give you the idea. It's not the prettiest. Get my cocoa butter sheet. Okay. So when you're dipping, you want enough chocolate, the depth that you can enrobe these. Deep enough you can dip it in. So sometimes I'll put a little towel in the back of it to kind of tilt the bowl. You want to set yourself up in a dipping procedure, so whatever works for you. Reaching over yourself, roll up a little bit. A nice area. Dipping fork. With this, you want to make sure you get rid of some of the excess, so you don't have big pools. Put it on the fork, or you can just throw it into the chocolate. Okay. Coat it. Pick it up, get it right underneath, tap, get rid of the excess, and then scooch it off. So if I do it this way, I'm going to have the chocolate transfer obviously on the bottom, right? If you wanted to do it on both sides, you can cut a strip, whatever size you're doing here, and put it on top. Alright, so you could have chocolate transfers on each side, or you could dip them and put them on just clear plastic and put the chocolate transfer on one side, kind of up to you. You know, you could do a little bit design as it starts to set with your fork on top of it. So again, pick it up. That's why this foot's pretty important. Lay it down, cover it in chocolate, get right underneath it. I wouldn't put as much as I want to do a lot at once. I wouldn't put too many in, especially if it's this soft. If they're on the firmer side, they shouldn't mush in your chocolate too much. Wipe it off. Lay them down slowly. The idea is not to have a lot of excess chocolate, right? There we go. Or a foot that kind of pools out. after you're doing a few of them, wipe the sides of your bowl so you don't have all that excess buildup. Okay. Keep cleaning the sides of your bowl. And you and your partner are going to do that first, okay? I'm just going to 1, 2, 3 this again. Let me let them set up and I'll show you what it looks like. Right here. That's a good spot.
You just dab that with the fork so you get that effect on it, right?
Yeah, the little lines, yeah. You don't have to do that. You can keep it smooth if you want. Remember, chocolate footed first, then flip it over. Okay, the last thing is your almonds. So you can choose to either enrobe these in all cocoa powder or all confectioner sugar, or cinnamon and cocoa powder, or cinnamon and confectioner sugar. Those are kind of variations. I'll write it on the board. I did a little bit of everything. I did, so because I don't like the straight cocoa powder, so I did about, I don't know, 2 cups of confectioner sugar, a cup of cocoa powder, and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. Don't make a huge amount of this because what we don't use is garbage, or you can share it if you want, someone wants to. We have lots of ones in here. Let's break that in my hands. So we're going to coat our almonds in chocolate. The key with this is that you're not enrobing them like we did with those. You don't want a lot of chocolate. You just want enough that it coats the outside of the almond, and then you'll put it into this coating, powdered sugar, whatever mixture you're doing. All right, so in the bowl, kind of like dressing a salad. You don't really have to worry about the temperature of the chocolate in this case. I'm going to drizzle a little bit on. I'm going to toss it up. Coat. Don't want to overheat my chocolate. So keep tossing. What's going to happen is the chocolate should start to set up a little bit on the outside of the almond. This isn't quite like canning, but the idea of panning, when you add like sugar, candy coating something, and you keep turning and turning, they start to set up a little bit. You don't want to let them set up too far because then the coating chocolate won't stick to them. But you want a thin amount of chocolate, and then you sprinkle them into your confectioner sugar. All right, and then you toss them up. You let them set up in the chocolate. Make sure you're breaking them up so they're independent. Then you're going to sift them to get rid of all this excess, because if you eat one of these with all that powdered sugar on it, it's not very pleasant. But it's early, but what I'll do is give you some, you guys can try these so you can see what it tastes like with the cinnamon and confectioner sugar. So you want to sift it, not do what I'm doing, right? Because you want to get off the excess here. Better than that. Yeah, there should be enough. If you want to pass it around and try it, no pressure. I've also put like a little bit of cayenne in here before, spicy ones.
Like Mexican chocolate?
Yeah, you might want to label that if you do that, just so we know from when you put them out. And that's it, right? So I'm going to sift it to get rid of the excess of this. Put them on a sheet pan, and we'll saran wrap them super duper tight, the same way we did them where they were just candied almonds, right?
I like the cayenne in there.
Huh?
I like the cayenne in there.
Me too. I love spicy
In there?
chocolate.
It's not in there yet. It's not in there. It's not in there?
No.
I thought it tasted.
Oh, I thought you were
taste
saying you want to do
Oh,
it.
is that cinnamon?
I don't
Cinnamon.
taste the cayenne.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was like,
cinnamon.
hey, I'm glad you like that. I'm glad you like that.
It's still early in the morning.
That's okay. Remember, guys, with these, the only thing is that if they're not super flat on the bottom, the transfer on the bottom doesn't always work, and I just force these off. But these are something it's good to pop in the fridge to get that cocoa butter to release. Same as your lollipops, right? If they're not flat, if there's any lines in them or move, whatever spots, they look a little bit nicer if you put the transfer on the top, because you can get it nice and flat. So one person can cut them, cut the raspberry caramels, the other person can take the time to cut the transfer sheets for the top. The other thing that happens with these, when the raspberry caramel is very soft like this, even when it's on the firm side, when the chocolate, you can pass it around, we're not gonna eat it. When the chocolate starts to contract, right, set around, if your filling is really soft, it squirts out the side of it.
It oozes through.
Oozes through, yeah, because the shell just expands and pops inside of it. So that's one thing to consider with your fillings if they are really soft. Like if I was, we're just practicing dipping, so I would keep going with this, but if I was in a production kitchen and my caramel was like this, I wouldn't take the time to dip them. I would just either put that in a shell and fill it, use it for something else, because they're not gonna hold up, and that's not really sellable, right, once it exposes like that. It'll taste fine, let's throw that away since we all passed it around. Okay, any questions? What are we doing first? What's the first thing you do?
Caramelized fruit.
Yeah, but more importantly, what's
Melt
the
the
first thing you do?
chocolate?
Yeah, get your water boiling. First thing you do, get your water boiling. Don't go start looking for cocoa butter transfer sheets. Get your water boiling. We'll keep the processor out so we can keep chopping chocolate. Find your stuff. Please keep in mind the bottom of that rack is another class of mine. You're on the top rack, okay? We tried to make sure we labeled it. And then, yep, then you're gonna get your fruit caramel, start cutting. Get yourself set up one thing at a time. This is all we're doing the first class, so don't rush through it. Take your time, step by step, okay?
Wait, you
Let me know
didn't do
your
the butter
questions.
crunch yet, right?
I don't have one to show you, but you're literally just spreading it with chocolate.
Oh,
Like that.
same
Yeah, you're just coating it. One side or two, it's up to you.
And so we could